This week on Navy Marine Corps News, we bring you embassy security training, a look at a different kind of individual augmentee, and how some midshipmen competed for the fourth and last time. Those stories and more on this edition of Navy Marine Corps News. This week on Navy Marine Corps News, we bring you embassy security training, a look at a different kind of individual augmentee, and how some midshipmen competed for the fourth and last time. Those stories and more on this edition of Navy Marine Corps News.
From your worldwide Naval Media Center team, from Pier 168, this is Navy Marine Corps News.
Welcome to the program. We have stories from the Midwest, Baltimore, and Bahrain. I'm Sergeant Phil Grondin.
And I'm Petty Officer Matt Oldham. Before we get to those stories, here are your headlines ashore and afloat for the week ending Wednesday, March 7th, 2007. Navy and Marine Corps senior leaders testified before the House Armed Services Committee March 1st. Secretary of the Navy Donald Winter spoke about the Navy's plan for shipbuilding and the proposed $139.8 billion budget.
Heard today that we're very pleased that the 30-year shipbuilding plan that was just submitted to you is the same exactly in 08 and 09 and almost the same in the out years as what was submitted last year. And this gives the industrial base the opportunity to properly plan for those activities.
And USS John F. Kennedy pulled into Boston March 1st as part of her last underway period. The Kennedy was commissioned in 1968 and is set to be decommissioned March 23rd in Mayport, Florida. Tune in next week as we bring you more about her last underway. And as the Navy says goodbye to one ship, the Navy's newest ship is set to be commissioned in her namesake city. Pre-commissioning Unit New Orleans arrived in New Orleans March 5th. Commissioning is scheduled for March 10th. A suggested revision to the Marine Corps tattoo policy has been bounced back to field commanders for review. The Commandant of the Marine Corps weighs in on the issue of Marines and tattoos.
A Marine really restricts his possible assignment if you have excessive tattoos. And I think that at some point in time, that is going to become a personal appearance factor in school boards, promotion boards, and those types of things.
And those are your headlines ashore and afloat for the week ending March 7th, 2007.
Security Force Marines are stationed in many parts of the world. The requirement to quickly respond and protect our people and assets overseas often falls on these Marines. Lance Corporal Todd Lewis shows us how the Security Force Marines of Rhodes, Spain keep their embassy protection skills sharp.
Go ahead and accept the package, copy.
Security Force Marines conducted an embassy protection training evolution at Naval Station Rhodes. This training simulates one of the main missions of a Security Force Marine, embassy protection.
If we ever went to an embassy, it would be because the ambassador of that embassy called the State Department and said that he wanted Marines on hand to guard his embassy because he felt the situation in the present country was getting out of hand and he was afraid that the embassy would be overran.
The Marines represented an embassy under attack by fortifying the entry points with concertina wire, setting up a command and communications center, and in placing sniper and machine gun positions, as other Marines dressed as hostiles to test the reactions of the security Marines.
The aggressors from the other platoon, we can expect them to possibly try to infiltrate the compound, attack the compound, try to get inside our perimeter using IEDs, vehicle IEDs, stuff like that.
Ranging from suspicious package arrivals,
so I can't leave it here or anything,
to aggressors breaking through an embassy fence. Marines must be ready to protect dignitaries and government officials at an embassy under attack. For the Naval Media Center in Rhodes, Spain, I'm Lance Corporal Todd Lewis.
Lance Corporal Todd Lewis showed us how Marines are keeping their embassy protection skills sharp. But how did they acquire these skills in the first place? In our next story, Sergeant Phil Grondin brings us continuing coverage of the Basic Security Guard course at the Marine Corps Security Force Training Company in Chesapeake, Virginia.
After nearly 5 weeks, Marines on the Basic Security Guard course are embarking on their final exercise. Training is conducted aboard this naval installation in Chesapeake, Virginia. The 24-hour exercise will take place at the Small Arms Training Complex, a facility designed exclusively for security-based training.
Today's training is it's a combination of several things. They've been going through the class for about 5 or 6 weeks now, and this is the culmination of all the stuff that they've learned, classroom and prac app. It's basically an evaluation of what they've learned. The NCOs had to write their op orders, had to do a warning order. Basically gives them an idea of what they're going to be expected to do as far as performance when they get to a fast company or to PRP command.
3rd Platoon, that's us, will deploy to augment the security of the American Embassy Monrovia in order to protect essential Department of Defense, Department of State, staff, designated personnel, and facilities.
Once downrange, Marines move into the compound to secure the objective. They go room to room to ensure there is no enemy present. Outside of the main gate, or the entry control point, concertina wire is laid out. At the same time, sandbag bunkers are set up, and needed supplies are offloaded. Marines now stand guard, watching and waiting for any potential trouble.
Basically, we set up a scenario from a foreign country that we've been in before, try to use as much realism as possible.
These would-be insurgents are trying to lure the Marines away from their post.
Stay away from the fence!
Get away from the fence! Sir, you back away from the fence!
With the insurgents gone and the incident over, all is calm. BSG Marines wait for nightfall.
Next week, Sergeant Phil Gronlin will show us more of the BSG training and how the Marines fared as night fell.
Navy SEALs take their name from the elements in which they operate. Their stealth and clandestine methods of operation allow them to conduct multiple missions against targets that larger forces cannot approach undetected. But where do the SEALs of the future with the necessary physical and mental attributes come from? Lieutenant Dave Heck traveled along with some SEAL recruiters who went to Minnesota looking for some future SEALs.
They come from the sea, and they come from the air and land. But before you can become a Navy SEAL, you first have to take the challenge, the Trident Challenge.
Well, the Navy SEAL Trident Challenge consists of 5 events. It is swimming, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and a run.
On the airwaves across Minnesota, Navy SEALs are promoting the Trident Challenge.
What this event really is about is physical fitness. This is using the SEAL Physical Screening Test, or PST, as a standard by which people can measure themselves.
For men,
on your mark,
women,
get set,
both young and old,
go.
The Trident Challenge is an opportunity for civilians to see how they stack up physically against the best of the best, the Navy SEALs. And for the Navy, it's an opportunity to promote the naval special warfare community, here looking for the next generation of warriors.
No matter what happens, we're walking away with lighting a fire in some of these people.
You got it, baby, you got it, keep going.
People like Fred Demuse.
Career change, I'm actually looking for a career change.
32 years old, Demuse's fire is burning hot to become a SEAL, and he's here to prove he's not too old to do it.
I think I'm gonna do pretty good.
How good?
By their standards, from what I've read on the internet, hopefully competitive.
Wave after wave, athletes and squads of 15 to 20 competed in one of the very first Trident Challenges. More than 100 athletes in all.
I just thought it would be something fun to gauge my progress and to see what my training has done for me.
And while Monson is not interested in a career in the Navy, a third of all competitors requested information about careers in naval special warfare.
That a lot of people are seeing and interacting with not just SEALs, but they're interacting with other Navy people and seeing that we're normal people, we're professional, we're friendly, and we really like doing this.
Minnesota proved they have what it takes. Now the SEALs want to know who else is up for the challenge. For the Naval Media Center, I'm Lieutenant Dave Hatt.
For more about Navy SEALs and their recruiting efforts, pick up a copy of the March issue of All Hands magazine. We'll be back with more Navy Marine Corps news after this.
It's often said sailors don't plan to fail, but sometimes they fail to plan. For one air traffic controller, his planning, perseverance, and high expectations allowed him to fulfill his dream. Petty Officer Tiffany Paredes brings us the story.
Upwind to get separation.
Almost 3 years ago, Petty Officer Berardo Rivas was on the USS Wasp, beginning his work on something few of his fellow air traffic controllers have, a Fleet Marine force pin. He did it to better prepare himself for individual augmentee duty with the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit in Afghanistan. Chief Petty Officer Michael Ridenour was also on the Wasp, gearing up for duty with the 22nd MU when he decided to help mentor Rivas.
When I met him, he's like, well, I'm going to go ashore with you guys and it's going to be great. And I'm like, shipmate, do you really know what you're getting yourself into, what you might be up against? And it never deterred him.
Getting FMF qualled is rare for most sailors, as opposed to hospital corpsmen who often deploy with Marines. And with all the training on equipment, weapons, and Marine Corps regulations, it's a serious commitment. By summer of 2004, they were both at Forward Operating Base Ripley in Afghanistan. Ridenour was with the Battalion Landing Team, 1st Battalion, 6th Marines, Rivas with Tactical Air Control Squadron 22. He pressed on with FMF training.
Every time in the morning from 8 to 10, I always had to be studying that book because it was too much information.
You know, he would like ask me a question. I was HM1 then. HM1, can you explain this to me? You know, how does this work?
He kicked me in, as I can say, in the rear once the times because when I gave it up, he was still see me walking around, he'll stop me, he'll ask me a question, and let me go. He didn't let me go until at least the question was answered.
Along with the rigorous training came an equally hectic schedule.
He was busy working with aircraft. I mean, they had C-130s coming in, they had Chinooks coming in, CH-46s. It's about time you got here.
Now at Naval Station Rhoda, Ridenour and Rivas have taken what they learned in Afghanistan and brought it to the service members they work with today.
I have sailors, you know, they kind of see me and they say, what do you think about doing an IA? What do you think about me doing this, doing that? And, you know, my response is always, well, it's positive. It's 100% positive for you. And, you know, AC2, he also sends that message. And sometimes it's better for sailors to hear it from one of their peers.
And because Rivas went above and beyond for his hard-earned FMF pin, he has gained the respect of his subordinates, his superiors, and especially Chief Ridenour. For the Naval Media Center in Rhodes, Spain, I'm Petty Officer Tiffany Paredes.
We just saw how Petty Officer Berardo Rivas trained for his deployment. Now our Bahrain detachment brings us a different take on how another part of the Navy team prepared for their individual augmentee assignment. Petty Officer Rachel Kibbe brings us a story.
Navy sailors are not the only ones being deployed as individual augmentees. So are military working dogs. The MWD kennel at Camp Arifjan is made up of Army, Air Force, and Navy dog teams from around the world. They work together to provide security throughout the region.
The mission is to support basically all the forward operating bases south of the border of Iraq. So we got, quite a few bases that we travel to and help out and assist.
Each dog and handler carries his own weight in fulfilling their mission.
Basically, he's a patrol dog, so he does all patrol functions with me as a patrolman. Building searches, scouts, tracking, and on the detection side, he's an explosive detector dog, so we make sure the base is safe from IEDs, people bringing in explosive type devices.
Each team is made up of a dog and its handler. They learn to rely on each other under any circumstances.
No, Auntie and I have a good relationship. We've been together for 2 years or so. Trust him with my life.
This special connection comes from a lot of time spent together, both during missions and extra training.
We try to train every day, weather permitting, missions permitting. Not every day, any chance we get.
Being over here, we train pretty much when we can. Right now, the weather's beautiful, so we're out here, every chance we get pretty much, 3-4 hours a day, if not more. So.
The K-9 unit continues providing a safer environment for their shipmates deployed to Kuwait. For the Naval Media Center, I'm Petty Officer Rachel Kibbe, Kuwait.
Constellation, the last all-sail warship built for the U.S. Navy, has a rich legacy. She sailed as flagship of an anti-slavery patrol, intercepting slave ships off of the coast of Africa during the 1800s. Petty Officer David Michael Ross takes us to the National Historical Seaport of Baltimore, where the Constellation is docked, and shows us how the ship helped battle for freedom.
Constellation was commissioned in 1855. In 1859, the ship and its crew was assigned an important mission to halt the transatlantic slave trade.
So what you have in this ship is truly a national treasure because it represents a little-known fact of our history that the United States Navy actively tried to halt the transatlantic slave trade before the Civil War. Many people think, oh, the Civil War was the first time that the government tried to stop slavery. This isn't the case.
The history of Constellation's mission stems from 1808, when Congress effectively banned the importation of African slaves. However, there were no teeth in the new legislative policy. It wasn't enforced.
You had many nations participating in the slave trade. The Portuguese, American vessels, the Spanish.
In 1842, Great Britain and the United States reached an agreement during the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, which established the United States African Squadron.
During that time, the squadron captured 36 slave ships. Now, from 1859 to 1861, when Constellation was flagship, the squadron captured 14 slave vessels, freeing almost 4,000 Africans. So you can sort of see how they were extremely successful.
On board Navy ships, they were black Americans. The Navy had been integrated since 1775, and on board this particular ship, when it captured the Cora, there were 15 blacks on board, and you can imagine them standing on the decks, up in the spars, looking down at this slave ship. They knew it was a slave ship as they approached it. Imagine what was going through the minds of those men. Now, their ancestors had come over on similar slave ships. Maybe their fathers had come over on those kinds of slave ships. And here they were, watching a slave ship being stopped in the high seas, and those Africans are going to go back home. Imagine how they felt. Imagine the kind of emotion that was running through them. I mean, it's very hard to imagine it, but that's what was going on, and it's a very seldom told story that really needs to be told.
In 1860, several months after capturing the slave ship Cora off the west coast of Africa, the Southern Secession began in the United States, and soon the Civil War erupts. All naval vessels were called home. Constellation now sits in the National Historical Seaport of Baltimore. For the Naval Media Center, I'm Petty Officer David Michael Ross.
We hear about the role that USS Mason played in integrating the modern Navy, but the Navy was integrated actually as early as 1775. With me here is Mr. Jack Green of the Naval Historical Center. Mr. Green, if you wouldn't mind putting into context integration in Navy's history.
Well, in fact, the Navy was integrated from its establishment as a Continental Navy in 1775 up until about 1919. Blacks were allowed to enlist in any rate and serve in any position in the Navy. Segregation came about 1919, right after the end of World War I. During World War I, the Navy had brought in large numbers of Southerners, of course, who had very racist views towards black people, and were able to put pressure upon the Navy Department to start a form of segregation within the ranks. Blacks were restricted to the messmen's rates, and in fact, from about 1922 to 1932, no blacks were actually enlisted in the U.S. Navy. From 1932 on, they were allowed to enlist in the messmen's rates, and it wasn't until June of 1942 that blacks were allowed to enlist at any rate in any position.
Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Green. Thank you for coming out here. Next, we go to Sergeant Phil Grondin with your fleet information.
The Standard Integrated Personnel System, or NSIPS, a web-enabled pay and management tool, is officially available fleet-wide. NSIPS provides field-level standardized and integrated pay and personnel records management capability for active and reserve members. The system requires individual validation for entering, changing, viewing, and downloading information. It's also presently operational at 351 shore sites and aboard 151 ships. The CNO has made it official. TMs will become part of the GM rating. The conversion applies to active duty, full-time support, component, and selected reserve and individual ready reserve sailors in the GM and TM ratings. As an element of the Navy's total force strategy, this merger will utilize the strengths, knowledge, skills, and abilities found in the two ratings. See NAVADMIN 049/07 for more information. Stay tuned for more Navy Marine Corps news after this break. The Motorcycle Safety Foundation is the internationally recognized developer of the comprehensive research-based rider education and training system. The course helps to reduce the inherent risk of motorcycle riding. Petty Officer Clay Weiss shows us how one instructor in Suda Bay, Crete, teaches sailors how to stay alive and protect themselves when they choose to ride.
Foul weather might seem like a good excuse to stay inside, but for a few NSA Suda Bay sailors, it's just one more reason for them to ride.
On a bike, you have to pay more attention because you don't have the protection that you have in the car, so you're noticing everything. You get to, I guess, feel more part of nature, I guess, you know, the wind on you, the sun on your back or whatever, so it's a great feeling.
What do we do here? Students of Suda's motorcycle safety course catch their passion from their instructor.
The most famous thing I love about a bike is you're part of the environment. If it's raining, you definitely feel the rain, but if it's sunny, you definitely feel it too. You're part of the road, you're part of the scenery, and it's just the coolest way to get around.
The motorcycle course makes sure to acknowledge riding's inherent risk.
Your main safety thing on riding your bike is your helmet. You have to have on the right proper gear. You definitely have to have on a helmet, full-fingered gloves, a good jacket, long pants, and sturdy over-the-ankle boots. This is your #1 priority, is protect yourself.
After they cover safety concerns, students mount 200cc training bikes and learn how to ride.
Cut. All right.
I feel like I just had a new son or a new daughter because I have a good idea that they know the skills, and this is very important.
Whether they continue riding in Crete or take it to their next duty station, Suda's motorcycle safety course readies sailors for the road.
Right this time.
Petty Officer Clay Weiss, Suda Bay, Crete.
2 weeks ago, we brought you the story of Midshipman Trong and how he became a true American success story. Now he and others turn to the U.S. Naval Academy's 66th Annual Brigade Boxing Championships at Annapolis. It was a new experience for some of the plebes, but a few midshipmen competed for the fourth and last time before they enter the fleet as new officers. But for all involved, the tradition of the event showed how Navy athletics augment a future ensign or lieutenant's leadership skills. Lance Corporal Robert Durham was there and brings us the story.
These fighters are ready. They have been preparing for this moment for a long time.
I play a fight through my head over and over and over again. It's kind of like chess. You make a move, he makes a move. Eventually, you're going to spring forward. Someone's going to be checkmate. You win.
I'm feeling good. Excitement's in the air. I'm looking forward to the fight. I fought last year. I'm hoping the results this year are a little better.
Midshipmen from the United States Naval Academy participate in a series of matches against each other every year. With jabs, roundhouses, and uppercuts, these mids don't hold back as they attempt to win it all. Navy boxing has been a tradition since 1865 for a reason. It helps develop leadership skills.
Mental toughness. I mean, you need a lot of mental toughness. You're out there in the field, you need to be making these tough decisions, leading your young sailors and Marines, and you need to be able to overcome that stress and that mentality to be able to make the right decisions, right moral decisions. And boxing helps a lot with that. Physical toughness as well.
Approximately 1,000 people attended this year's event to cheer their favorite classmates and relatives. Boxers fight in weight classes from 125 pounds to the final heavyweight match. One of the fighters to watch for was B.J. Richardson, who won his 4th straight year at the Academy and is proud to take home the Tony Rubino Award.
This is a 4-time brigade championship trophy, Raleigh Trophy. He was the first 4-time brigade championship champion.
Also, Antone was awarded the Spike Webb Outstanding Boxing Award. From Halsey Fieldhouse in Annapolis, Maryland, for the Naval Media Center, I'm Lance Corporal Robert Durham.
Midshipman Trong, who overcame obstacles and difficulties in Iraq, lost in his match at the Brigade Boxing Tournament in the 125-pound class.
Maintaining good physical fitness is a requirement for all sailors. There are many different schools of thought when it comes to getting into shape. Some advocate running, while others prefer light exercise. In Bahrain, sailors are participating in a new form of exercise, Stobo. Petty Officer Terrence Jefferson tells us more.
Sailors stationed at Naval Support Activity Bahrain have added a new tool to their physical fitness routine, Stobo. Stobo is a high-impact exercise with variations of upbeat music, body-strengthening routines, which are incorporated to deliver optimum fitness results.
What we do in Stobo is we take exercises that gets your heart rate up, conditions your legs, conditions your arms, keeps your chest in an upright position, and we teach you how to run.
Although the Navy has made positive strides in improving overall personal fitness, one sailor reflected on how Stobo helped him and his shipmates get off the fitness enhancement program and pass the PRT.
The 2 or 3 other guys that were on it with me, if it wouldn't have been for the Stobo, they wouldn't have gotten past the PRT either.
During Stobo, the instructors guide students through a series of exercises which increases flexibility and improve cardio performance.
Our ideal is to do basic, fun movements and give you a workout without you knowing about it.
A personnel specialist who often attends the exercise class made it clear what his #1 priority is.
My goal is to be able to score outstanding on the PRT. I would like to run the 1.5 miles in under 11 minutes. So if I could do that, I'd be happy with it.
One naval officer was excited about his development and all new range of motion.
My flexibility has gone up. I'm sort of a bulky guy, and he actually gets us stretched out and doing some things that I haven't done before.
For the Naval Media Center, I'm Petty Officer Terrence Jefferson, Bahrain.
That's Navy Marine Corps news for this week. To get more news and information about the Marine Corps, visit marines.mil.
And for photos, stories, or the latest news, go to Navy.mil. Plus, you can download video news, radio news, and vidbits in podcast format. For everyone at the Naval Media Center, thanks for watching. We'll see you about the fleet.